was a legitimate, brilliant character actor and
Kiefer
said, "Dad,
Sutherland.
you're uncool. I'm gonna be
Donald
cooler than
Sutherland.
you." Kiefer looked at his dad and thought he was uncool, and so he tried. He Hollywooded himself the whole way, and so Kiefer was just like the boring
I'm sort of proud I
actor.
got the trivia question right. It's
The
not normally,
of
but I just knew Val
That's
Kilmer
good.
was wrong. And what was the other one? Patrick Swayze? No, who else did you say?
Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon. There is a certain. It is a Venn diagram, isn't it? There's
Yeah,
a certain overlap.
Kiefer. I really think that Kiefer is right in the middle of Kevin Bacon and Val Kilmer because Kevin Bacon is like industry reliable. It's like we need that. We need that sort of like
Normal guy. Has he always
normal
been
guy.
reliable, or did he become sort of like it was sort of like a inside joke that became legit?
It's a good question.
I don't really know.
He's
I'm
sort of like
vastly
I
out
think
of
I
my
remember
depth here.
the first movie I saw Kevin Bacon in was it was this ensemble piece. And he was like this punky guy. It was like all-star cast. What was it? It wasn't American Graffiti, was it? But it was like it was the uh, this is going nowhere. But he sort of like had a little punkiness to him that it was like, okay, this is what he's going to be. And then like he sort of washed that off
He
himself and
unpunked,
became.
right? Well, it was probably a very smart career move, or maybe it was a terrible career move. Who's to know?
Well, Donald Sutherland, for example, never un-Donald Sutherland himself.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
There, I think it's a good thing in a way. I mean, it's not that he's not versatile, but he just was. He just had I feel like Donald Sutherland has a little more richness to his performances because he never undone or Donald Sutherland himself. Like Jeff
But
Goldblum is an example of somebody who started to un-Jeff Goldblum himself and realized it was a bad move, and then he was just like, "No, I'm turning up the Jeff Goldblum,"
yeah,
because he was starting on the road of just being like a unthreatening nerdy character, like around Big Chill time. Then he was just like, no, that's not where I'm going to go. I'm going to go weird and creepy
he
all the way.
cranked it back up, and then he became a thing unto himself.
Yeah.
Someone else who sort of became Christopher Walken sort of became a thing unto himself maybe in a similar way, or maybe in
Yeah.
even a more accomplished way.
I'd like to see this in a Venn diagram because that is maybe the difference between Kevin Bacon and Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer is like, could have been very generic, and he was trying to weird himself out a little bit, and Kiefer's right in the middle.
Kiefer.
But
Kiefer was big during
nobody.
24. That was a big moment for him.
So what was the plot? Was he trying to save the president from being assassinated or something? Was that
I think there were nuclear weapons were a big thing. Maybe there was, I don't know. I didn't really watch it, but Rebecca actually had a work assignment where she had to watch it for some like graduate student study on like violence in television or something. So she was like watching this. It was very stressful. It's not her style of TV. Highly stressful, suspenseful.
And that's how they got half their viewership. Actually, was through university studies. We're not getting anyone to watch this thing. What can we do? Have you tried
known strategy?
University studies. We'll get thousands of people to watch it.
I had a thought.
And their spouses.
I had a thought. Speaking of none of this, which was this week.
Kiefer Sutherland related?
No, not at all. Nothing about Kiefer at all. No Kiefers were harmed in the making of this thought. The thought was this. This week I careened on my podcast idea. Just like if I'm the captain of the car, the ship is just careening left and careening right. And you're part of this loop. I'm like, I'll talk to you and be like, one example is, should I do it in person or should I just do it virtually? And we decided to do it virtually. It makes so much sense. I'm like, great. I get a bunch of equipment. I get ready to set it all up. And then just like last night, I'm thinking about it. I'm writing something up and I'm like, you know what? It's going to be so much harder for me to establish rapport with people I don't know when it's online. It's going to be so much more arm's length. And then suddenly I have this like certainty this has got to be in person. And it just careened the whole boat, this way, and everyone's like, well, we've been preparing for, the whole crew is like, okay, put all the stuff back, and the same is true, like, even for the concept of the show. It's going to be about Berkeley. No, it's actually about creative, and there's a sub-series of Berkeley. So it's just like full careen, change the artwork, get a different crew, toss that crew overboard. And it's just like...
And the crew's like, what?
So in one way, I feel just terrible about it because I just feel like, oh, what a unqualified captain I am. And then I think there's another voice that says, this is the process. This is the way it goes. And normally if you're just totally doing it by yourself, maybe you feel a little guilty or maybe you don't totally notice, but it's once you bring other people into the fold, then you're really accountable to just knowing exactly how screechy of a driver that you're being. But I think that's the process. I think that's the creative process, is being screechy in such a way.
No, man, I'm exactly there right now in this moment. And this is exactly the struggle that I'm having, is that after working by myself for a few years, bringing other people into it. Yeah, it's that all of a sudden people are like, don't you know what you're doing? And my response is always, no, I don't know what I'm doing. We're figuring it out. You're here now, so that we get to figure it out together. And the reaction has not been wonderful on that front. It's not been great.
Wait, so are people actually asking you, do you know what you're doing, or is that your imagined voice?
No, it's not. You don't know. It's more like you're doing it wrong. That's the feel. It's just like they'll see something and they'll be like, that light is bad. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Like, what do you mean? Like, what would be? And at first it's like you can't see anything. Like, we'll take a video and it'd be like, well, it's too dark. So then the next week comes along and then I have some lights set up and they're like, that light is ugly. Why would you get that light? And I'm like, oh, it should be a good light that's not ugly, because this one is apparently ugly. I don't know anything about it. So it's not like, yeah, you should know what you're doing. Like, why are you making all these terrible choices? And I don't have a good response to that, except for the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. Like, why am I making bad choices? Because I'm figuring it out. Like, if we keep doing this for a year, I'm hoping that my choices will evolve.
Yeah.
Because I'll learn.
Yeah.
But I think the way that I'm learning is by being chastised for my bad choices.
But maybe that is just the nature of things, right? It's like someone, because you're organizing the party to begin with. It's like someone's like, hey guys, there's nothing going on right now on Tuesday nights and we all love playing basketball. So I'm going to rent a gym and I'm going to blah, blah, blah and show up at this time. And you answer questions and you're the person everybody comes to for answers, and you talk to the janitors and you make sure that the fence is unlocked or whatever it is. And then when something sucks about it, when there's a problem, people are like, this is, I can't believe they turn off the whatever. There's nowhere to sit or whatever. I don't know what the complaints would be. And then you kind of want to be like, I made the whole game. We're here to,
Yeah, the classic example of that is that one time, like, I was trying to set up microphones and just do everything, and I was getting really stressed out, and we were very communicative as a group, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry I'm being uptight. I'm just like setting this stuff up. And they're like, you know what? Just relax. Don't worry about it. It's better. Just be present. We don't need to like capture all this. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I totally relax into it. We have a great time. We start playing. It starts being great. And then somebody was just like, you got that, right? We played a song and it was just magic, right? It's like, you got it. And I was like, no, we said we weren't going to worry about it. And then there's like, well, what's the point of all this stuff if we're not even going to record? And I'm like, what? You said I should relax.
But I thought we would. Well, I mean, so it sounds like you're pretty convinced. These are not just voices in your head where you're downing yourself. You're pretty convinced people are actually grumpy about the details. I mean, you're also talking about.
I've looked at it from a lot of different angles, because I feel like some people are saying like you're moving too fast. Like, why are you setting up video cameras when we're not even good yet? And I'm like, well, there's a couple reasons. I mean, I'm very consciously making these choices because I'm like, let's get it now, because we are really the magic appears sometimes, and not 24 hours, not every second of every time we play, but it shows up on a regular basis. And then somebody will break out a camera, and then it'll be like a terrible angle, or the lighting will be wrong, or the sound will be bad. And it's just like, well, if we were just had some cameras set up, and the lighting was good, and maybe we had some
Yeah.
microphones. I have all that stuff. Like, if we were to just capture it, maybe something good would come out of it. But even if nothing does, just getting used to the thing being on and stuff, like, let's just acclimate to that. But I think I've heard that you're scaring. Somebody said the magic is like a rabbit, and you can scare it away. And so it's still there, and if you just relax, this rabbit will come back.
But it does seem
But
like, you hear about reality TV or something where you're like, how do you live your life? Or these things, real world and all of its children, right?
yeah,
And you're like living your life with camera crews there, and they say, people always ask, how can you possibly do that? And they always say, you after a while, you start to ignore it. You start to forget it's there.
Yeah.
But like anytime someone has a camera on me now, I am 100% aware of it. And actually,
Yeah.
you and I have got to the point, even with taping these, where I can start to forget a little bit and just chat with you. But the first 5 times, it was just like,
right.
words come to mouth, But I think that's probably the wisdom in what you're doing, which is just like, let's set it up, let's go through all the awkwardness to the point where we start to forget that stuff is here, and then you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, and I've been and this is just me trying to learn from, I think, previous experiences where I feel like I'm working with a band, and we've got everything just like we've just got it perfect in one format, and then we're like, oh, now's the time to, for example, record it, because we've got it perfect. And we start recording it, and it's just like, it doesn't work that way. You don't, if you rehearse the band to perfection and then you just like turn on a bunch of mics, actually recording music is a different art form than performing it. It's you have to, there's so many more different elements of how do you get it to sound good in the narrow band. But it's the same thing with cameras. If you get everything perfect, you get your stage show perfect, you get your energy all great, and then you turn on the cameras, then everybody's like, oh, the camera's on. So yeah, if we could just get used to it is the idea. But it does feel like in my collaboration with people recently that it really did throw a big wet blanket on the whole party, because everybody's like, this is the best thing ever, and then all of a sudden we got a bunch of cameras and lights and stuff, and they're just like, this is weird, why are you making it weird?
I guess I could see that. I could see that. Well, you also have been preparing for everything, and so you've been placing lights, and you've been like, this is going to be nice. But I could see feeling like you're going for a jam session in someone's basement, and then suddenly you feel like you're going on stage.
Totally.
But it is like, does it assuage people's discomfort at all when you talk about your master plan for it, or not really?
Different people are on board to different levels. I mean, it was the same thing a little bit when I wanted to book a show, because during COVID we were just playing around a fire, and then I was like, I want to book a show. We sound great. And then it was like, why do you want to book a show? This is perfect. You're taking something perfect and you're ruining it. But then you have a good show, and then people are like, I get it now. This is great. It's the same thing if you get a good audio recording of something or a good video of something, then people are like, oh yeah, this is something I'm going to cherish. Like, forget about grandiose visions about where it's going to go. If you have a nice recording of yourself, that's wonderful. Or a nice video, I mean, that's something that you'll cherish.
Yeah, totally. Switch off my phone for making beeps there. Yeah, totally. And well, you're also talking about a band specifically, which is just historically discordant, right? I mean, like, I've never been in a band in my whole life that didn't have bickering as a fundamental sort of like agreement. It's like the fundamental agreement you sign when being a band. Although I don't know, maybe that's more true when you're in your 20s. I don't really know. Most of my band experience was being in the 20s, but it just seems like, bunch of artists, a bunch of people who put passion and feeling into their art, and you get into a circle, and then it's like usually like sort of based on a very collaborative, consensus-driven approach, and chances that all of that's just going to line up and everyone's going to be like, great, sounds great, let's keep going. I wonder if that
Yeah.
doesn't
Well,
exist.
yeah, and I wonder how to do it. I'm still very much trying to figure it out. And one of the things is I don't think what I'm doing right now isn't a band. I feel like it's been specifically sort of said like it's not a band, it's a project. And but no
Great.
matter what,
I know exactly what to do with that.
Yeah, well, everybody's got different ideas of what right sounds like, especially with music.
Yeah.
You know, somebody will call a tune and somebody else will be like, that tune is not the kind of tune we should be doing. And somebody else thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel, and maybe this is my own lack of taste or lack of artistic integrity or just a lack of taste really, is that I like it all. I like play anything. Somebody wants to play Kenny Rogers the Gambler, I'm like, awesome, that's a great song.
Yeah.
Somebody else might be like, that is not cool. That's not a cool thing to play.
I don't believe in that. I did when I was younger, but now I think we had this discussion years ago. I remember, but just like there's almost not a song, not a pop song, not anything that I can't sort of be like, that's a certain kind of genius to have produced that, you know. And I think it's easy to sort of like look down your nose at pop this and pop that, but like, yeah, you try to write one of those, you know what I mean? They're like brilliantly crafted to just like get in your ear and just work. And yeah, so I my arc has definitely been in the non-judgmental direction over the course of my life, where I think that's part of a certain identity that you form as a young sort of music interested person, or a musician certainly, is like, that's uncool and that's cool. I still find it sometimes. There's one song that really irked me with its lack of, I don't want to even name it because I feel like somehow that's
it. You got one that's the pinnacle of the of the uncool in your mind.
I do.
You do?
I'm dying to tell you.
What is it? Tell me.
Do you remember the song
a
number of years ago? There was a song, Hey There Delilah. Hey There Delilah.
Oh, I hate that song.
Yeah.
I also hate that song. In fact, that is.
It's so worthless.
Yeah.
This is me going back to my bad habits, but that one really, really just grated on me, and it was so catchy.
I agree.
So catchy. Like I'm sad to have even sung it now because it's gonna stay in my head. But it just
I'll give you one just as bad. To me, the one that I think is the top of my list. I don't want to say it either because I don't want to get it stuck in my head. But I got a bunch.
Okay, you gotta come on. I did mine. You gotta give what's the top of your list?
Well, the one that I was thinking was this guy is the Third Eye Blind, and it was. I'm glad I'm not pulling it out, but it was a 3-chord wonder of like. And it has a similar energy as that Delilah one. It's just like somebody who being like somebody. You could just, for what I don't like about it is there's something about how the performer just gives off this sort of like feeling of like they think they're winning. They think that they're so cool that they've reached it, and they're just like, that's right, I figured it out.
Well, you don't remember what the song is?
Like,
you don't remember the song. You can't pull it out? No pressure.
It was their big one. It was their big. But this is back in the 90s. I don't know.
All right, I'm looking it up. Well, okay. We'll figure that out later. Yeah, I wonder if that has to do with it, because that I always thought Hey There Delilah was similar, and just sort of like, there's this very boring, very non-original, and it had a very sort of smarmy confidence about it. But I don't know.
Smarmy confidence. That's it. That's the word. Smarmy confidence.
Well, I can't remember how we got there.
Well, you were talking about working with other people, and when you're as a leader, like we have to, Oh, anything you want to be good at, you got to be bad at it first. And so when it comes to leadership, that's a tough one because then you have to subject other people to your learning curve.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but isn't it true? So, yeah, like in this case where I'm trying to just even set the groundwork for a show and start doing something and make sure it's the right thing, I think that is the right process to careen sometimes. And you don't really know that you didn't like version A that you were considering until you're almost there pulling it off and you're like typing up something to send to someone and you're like, oh, wait, no, that doesn't quite feel right. And so you have to start in the process. I mean, it's the same sort of wisdom about being agile and in any kind of field, but you don't quite know that that you're there until you're there. So in fact, it is very much like agile. It's like agile software development, right? Like the idea that you're sitting here and you can just like plan the entire thing from where you're sitting before you've even gotten in the race is absurd. But
Yeah.
you feel bad for not having done that, right? Because you're sort of like, okay, everyone, we're going to go this way. And this is what's going to be like. And this is what, the format is going to be. And here's how we're going to play. And people are like, okay. And they're in on that. And then you get there and you're like, wait a second, adjustment needed. And then what you would hope for, I guess, is everybody's like, great, fine, adjustment needed. And in my case, no one's complaining. But I think I was sort of feeling bad about this, like, oh, God, I keep switching. And I was trying to tell myself, don't feel bad. That's the game. The game is switching.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of what you're saying, like getting on people on board. I like the idea of telling people that this is the game. I think that would be a great thing to hear. To be like, the game is, we're in the figuring it out business
Yeah.
again. I mean, and I've heard somebody say that almost all great businesses are a pivot. Are they started doing something, and then they, like Slack. Were they like game designers or something, and then they
Yeah, it was like
invented something to
just communicate with each other. Yeah.
communicate with each other, and they're like, this is the thing. This is the thing that was our unique value.
Our game sucks, but this little back channel thing is great.
I think I just saw that my gain was like blowing up the red, and I think that I've been.
I don't know, but we're having the same problem again where your audio is delayed. But what's amazing is it really makes you look like a Muppet because you start going like this, and then it's like the sound is a little bit off with the mouth opening, and I feel like that's for you in particular would be exciting, not an insult. But
that's great. Oh yeah, I paid extra for that effect.
My brother actually sent me a recording yesterday of Hamilton sung by the Muppets. It must be a guy that does like all the voiceovers. I don't know how he does all the Muppet voices, but it's fairly amazing. It's like the entire first act of Hamilton sung by Muppets. I'll send it to you. I considered sending it to you yesterday, and then how a while back you said when they're a direct hit for you, it almost can hurt. Not for you in particular, for anyone. And I paused and I was like, is that gonna be exciting for you or debilitating? Because you're just gonna be like, this is too great. But I don't know. I'll send it to you and we can test that theory.
All right. Doesn't sound like a direct hit.
Well, the Hamilton part maybe not, but the Muppet part, there's something. Well, we'll see. We'll see how much of a hit it is. All right. Well, maybe we should let it there, huh? Let it there. Leave it there. Let it. Let's let it.
We will let it.
Let it. And we let it end broadcast.